I have a friend who gives a Talmud class, and he does it a little differently. He said that instead of going through the entire subject of each matter and all of the discussions, they learn a bit about each discussion and then they move on to the next discussion. So they kind of get like more of a brief synopsis of each part instead of going through all the nitty-gritty and back and forth. And I was curious to hear your perspectives on if you'd rather continue it the way that we're doing it or if you'd rather change it up a little.
I like the nitty-gritty.
Thank you, Zalman. What about Chaim?
Um, let's change it up a little bit just to see if it, we can always go back to the nitty-gritty, but maybe
Okay.
see what it's like.
Okay. And Bela Esther, what about yourself?
I'm just waiting for my shot so I can feel better.
Okay. Wow. Sounds like you're in a lot of pain.
I am.
Sorry to hear that. Okay. Let's start with our blessing before we read from and learn from the Torah. We say Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu mitzvosav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. So, one more question before we start. Zalman, did you end up having a chance to put on tefillin over the trip?
I cannot lie, I did not.
Okay. But you had them with you.
Well, there wasn't much room in the suitcase, so no, I'm afraid I didn't.
Got it. Okay. Well, we'll make up for it today or tomorrow.
Okay, it's a deal.
Okay. Back into blessings. With regard to the appropriate blessing over boiled vegetables, let us say that perhaps this dispute is parallel to a dispute between the Tanaim. We're going to see a very interesting story over here. As the Gemara relates, there were two students, and they were sitting before Bar Kapara, and I guess it was lunchtime, and here's what happened. Cooked cabbage, cooked damascene plums, and pullets were set before them. Does anybody know what damascene plums are or pullets are?
Pullets are chickens.
Pullet is a chicken, right? Yeah, a little chicken. Okay. And I'm guessing a damascene plum is a plum from Damascus?
Looks like it.
Okay. So let me ask you, before we go in over here, what is the blessing over cabbage? Forget about the cooked part. What is the blessing over cabbage?
Oh, well, cabbage comes from the ground, so it would be the same one as it is for potatoes or anything else. That's
Very good. What about plums?
Well, plums is a fruit, so it'll be the
Very good.
same.
And what about chicken?
Chicken is chicken.
Chicken is chicken. So for the plums, you would make who brings forth fruit from the tree. For the cabbage, you would make who brings forth fruit from the ground. And from the chicken, you would make by whose word all things came to be. The general rule is that the blessings go in order of first Hamotzi, then the blessing who creates various forms of nourishment, then the blessing over fruits of the tree, then fruits of the ground, then by whose word all things came to be. If you have all those different kinds of foods in front of you, that would be the order. First over the cakes and cookies, then over the fruits. After that, the vegetables, followed by the chicken, eggs, milk, fish, etc., whatever's on the table. Okay. So if we remember, it's been 2 weeks, but we were discussing, do boiled vegetables have the same status as regular vegetables, and do they keep their blessing once you boil them? So let's see what happened over here. Bar Kapar turned to one of the students and gave him permission to recite a blessing. He said, go ahead and eat. He hurried and recited a blessing over the pullets. He started eating the chicken, which is the third in the pecking order,
So
pun
to speak.
intended. Sorry?
I said so to speak, but you said it was a pun, so.
He should have first made the blessing over the fruits of the tree, after that the fruits of the ground, and only after that the all the other stuff. His counterpart ridiculed him for gluttonously reciting the blessing that should have been recited later, and he said it first. So Bar Kappara became angry with both of them. He said, I am not angry with the one who recited the blessing, but at the one who ridiculed him. Because the law is that if there's, even though generally the priority is given first to fruits, then to vegetables, then to chickens, meat, fish, eggs, those kind of things. If there's one which you are partial to, if there's one food that you want to eat, then you make the blessing over that food first. So Bar Kappara said, first of all, to the guy who made fun, he said, if your counterpart is like one who never tasted the flavor of meat and therefore was partial to the pullet, and he hurriedly ate it, why did you ridicule him? He was hungry. He hasn't had chicken in a long time. Then why are you making fun of him? He did correctly. Bar Kappara continued and said to the second student, I am not upset at the one who ridiculed him. Rather, it is with the one who recited the blessing that I am angry. And he said, if there is no wisdom here, is there no elder here? Even if you didn't understand which blessing you should make first, I'm here, you could have asked. And the end of the story is not a very happy story. Both of them did not live out the year. Both of those students died.
Punishment seems a little harsh for that little infraction, for that infraction.
Yes, it seems as though it was due to the anger of their teacher that they died. And it's unfortunate. If you get me angry, don't worry. I will not be angry at you.
Yeah, I was thinking,
I will definitely
are
not.
you angry that I didn't put on tefillin on the trip? Because
That is a very important question to ask, and the answer is no. I am not angry that you did not put
got
on
the
the
load off my
trip.
mind.
Good.
Hmm.
Good. But tomorrow you should bring your own tefillin to the class.
Okay.
If you're available. I should have asked first before I'm just
Yeah,
assuming that
yeah,
you'll be around. Will you be here tomorrow?
yes.
Okay.
But he said that, but to go back up,
Yes.
did they say that you should say the blessing of the food that you're going to eat first?
So that's a good question, and that's what we're about to learn in a minute. He should have first eaten the plums, then the cabbage, then the pullets, but perhaps from here we can see a proof that even if the plums and the cabbage are cooked, they retain their original blessing. Because if cooked cabbage and cooked plums lose their status as fruits of the tree and fruits of the ground and become just like all other kind of things, then they all three have the same blessing by whose word all things came to be, and there's no issue to eat one before the other. Is that what your question was?
I guess what I'm saying is you have the choice to is the order of eating prescribed, or I mean, are you allowed to say, well, I want the plums for dessert, I'm going to eat the chicken first?
Yeah, so dessert is that's a good question. The answer is yes, you are allowed to prioritize certain foods over the other. So if you're sitting down and there's a spread in front of you and everything is kind of equal, meaning you're going to eat this, you're going to eat the salad, you're going to eat the chicken, and you're just going to eat everything, then the correct thing to do would be first to recite the blessings over the fruits, then the vegetables, and then the eggs or whatever have you. However, if your main meal is your chicken, you're sitting down to eat chicken, and then you're gonna have some kind of compote for dessert, so then you would make the blessing on the chicken first because you're hungry and the chicken's gonna fill you up. And then you're gonna wash it down with, some kind of a fruit compote. Then you can then you'll make the blessing on the fruit at the end. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. Moving right along, the Talmud therefore attempts to infer from this story the topic at hand. What? Is it not that they disagreed with regard to the following? The one who recited the blessing over the pullet first held that the blessing to be recited over both boiled vegetables as well as the pullet is by whose word all things came to be. And therefore that which he prefers, he takes precedence and is eaten first. The one who ridiculed him held that over boiled vegetables one recites who creates the fruit of the ground, and over the pullet one recites by whose word all things came to be. And therefore the fruit would take precedence because it is a blessing and more specific and therefore more significant. The Gemara says, no, that's not what the explanation of the story is. Everyone agrees that both over the boiled cabbage as well as the pullet one would recite by whose word all things came to be. Here, what are they arguing about? The following. This sage who recited the blessing held that food which is preferred takes precedence, and one recites a blessing over it first. And the sage who ridiculed him held that cabbage takes precedence as it nourishes, and therefore even if you wanted to eat the chicken, you should have first made the blessing over the cabbage. Rabbi Zera said, when we were in the study hall of Rav Huna, he said to us, these turnip heads, if one cuts them into large slices, you make the blessing who creates the fruit of the ground, because in doing so, he has not significantly changed them. But if he cut them into small pieces, he would recite over them by whose word all things came to be. Which is similar to what we said before about potato chips. If you cut them into slices, then you would still make who creates the fruit of the ground. However, if you pulverize them and turn them into a powder and form those powder into Pringles, then you would make a blessing by whose word all things came to be. And when we came to the study hall of Rav Yehuda, he said to us that both over the large slices and the small slices, one recites who creates fruit of the ground. And the fact that he cut them extensively was in order to sweeten the flavor, so it was only in order to enhance it, not in order to change it. More kind of different foods. Rav Ashi said we were in the study hall of Rav Kahana. He told us over a cooked dish of beets, to which they do not typically add a significant amount of flour, one recites who creates the fruit of the ground. However, over a cooked dish of turnips, to which they typically do add a significant amount of flour, one recites who creates the various types of nourishment. And Rav Kahana reconsidered the previous statement and said, over both these, the beets, and those, the turnips, one would recite who creates the fruit of the ground. Because the reason they put in the extra flour with the turnips is only so the components of the cooked dish would stick together. It's only that the beets and the turnips should stick together. The primary ingredient of the dish remains the turnips and not the flour, and therefore you would make the blessing who creates the fruit of the ground. I was in a store, not a store, a restaurant, and it was fascinating. they had a non-beef, like a vegan beef, I guess you would call it. I don't know. And they made it out of hearts of palm and beets. And it looked exactly like a pulled beef. It was fascinating. It definitely did not taste like beef.
Like the Impossible Burgers.
Those are
With
pretty
those?
good. Yeah, no, this wasn't like that. This wasn't like ground, meaning I feel like it's a lot easier to make something ground. You know, you can put in soy and whatever, tofu and grind it up and make it into a patty. This was like pulled beef, and it looked like pulled beef. The problem is the only part of it that tasted like pulled beef was the barbecue sauce.
Put enough
Uh,
barbecue sauce on anything, it'll taste good, right?
that's right. Well, hearts of palm and beets, maybe not so much, but tangential to this mention of a turnip dish, Rav Chisda added and said a cooked dish of beets is beneficial for the heart, good for the eyes, and all the more so for the intestines. And Abaya said that is specifically when the dish sits on the stove and makes a toch toch sound. So if it boils until the water comes out, and then you know when you have like a thick porridge on the stove or something like that, and it starts like bubbling and going toch toch. So when it starts making toch toch, that's when it's good to eat this cooked dish of beets. Aha! What about soup? What blessing do you make on soup? Rav Papa said it is clear to me that beet water, water in which beets are boiled, has the same status of beets, and turnip water has the same status as turnips. And the water in which all boiled vegetables were boiled has the same status as boiled vegetables. So if you make yourself a soup, the soup would be not the blessing over water, but the soup would be the blessing over vegetables. However, Rav Papa raised the dilemma, what about water in which dill was boiled? Do they use dill to sweeten the water, or do they use it to remove residual filth? What does that even mean? If the dill was added to flavor the food, then the water in which it was boiled should be treated like a water in which another vegetable was boiled. But I thought we don't make a blessing over dill because it's a spice. However, if the dill was merely added to absorb the residue of the soup, then there was never any intention to flavor the dish, and one should not recite a blessing over it.
What if the soup has vegetables and meat, i.e. chicken soup?
That is a very good question, and the answer for that is that over chicken soup, I believe we make the blessing over chicken, even if it has vegetables inside it, because it's chicken soup. It's not a vegetable soup. Happens to have vegetables in it, but it's a chicken soup. Unless there are matzah bowls as well, over which you would make a separate blessing on the matzah bowl. The same blessing as cakes and cookies, who creates various forms of nourishment. And then you would make a blessing over the soup, who creates, by whose word all things came to be. Now let's put in Google and see if dill is used to remove residual filth from a stew. No, I'm not getting lots of dill recipes.
If it's just one of those weird things they believed 1,000 years ago.
I wonder. Let's see in Wikipedia if Wikipedia says that there was any cultivation history uses. Culinary. Cuisine. Polish cuisine, Serbian cuisine. Stem buns, Middle East, companion planting. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe it oh, I have an interesting idea. Um I have an interesting idea and I don't know if this holds any weight, but this is what comes to my mind. If you ever have you ever boiled a soup with a lot of dill in it?
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes the dill will kind of stick to the edge of the pot. Is that right?
Yes.
So I wonder if they wouldn't wash their vegetables and they would have some dirt on the vegetables, if the dill would mix together with the dirt and the dirt would have where to stick at the edge of the pot so that it wouldn't absorb into the water. Could that be? I wonder. Okay. Come here a resolution to this dilemma from what we learned in a Mishnah. Dill. Once it has already given its flavor in the pot, no longer has any value and is no longer subject to the laws of teruma. Since it is no longer considered food, it can no longer become impure with the ritual impurity of food. So we could see from here that the reason why you put dill into food is to sweeten the taste of the food. And the Gemara concludes, indeed, learn from this that dill is a spice that's made to sweeten the taste of the food. Rav Chia bar Ashi said, what happens if you have dry bread and you put it in a bowl to soak water? One would recite the blessing over bread, hamotzi, even if there is another loaf of bread before him, as it is considered bread in every respect. And this halacha disagrees with the opinion of Rabbi Chia, as Rabbi Chia said, the blessing must conclude with the beginning of breaking the loaf of bread. Rabbi Chia said that you always have to make a blessing on a full loaf of bread. However, we see from here that you can make the blessing even on a slice. Rava strongly objects to this assumption. What is different about dry bread that one does not recite who brings forth bread from the earth over it? Because when the blessing concludes, it concludes on a slice. In a case where he recites a blessing on a loaf of bread, also, when he completes the blessing, he completes it on a slice, as one cuts the bread before the blessing. So Rava says, 1 second, if you're slicing the bread before you make the blessing, then whether you started off with a full loaf of bread or whether you started off with a slice of bread, you're making your blessing on a slice because ain't no one picking up a whole loaf of bread to their mouth. We have finished page 39a, L'chaim. Rather, Rava said, when breaking bread, one recites the blessing over the complete loaf, and only afterwards he breaks it. And this is what you see, what we do by on Shabbos, when we have our 2 challahs. We will first make the blessing over the complete challah, and after that we slice it, and after that we eat it. The Gemara relates, the sages of Nahardah acted in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Chia, and would recite the blessing as they were breaking the bread, and conclude the blessing as he finished breaking off the piece of bread. Sorry, so that is the sages of Nahardah. Nahardah, we said, was one of the big communities, one of the big yeshiva communities in Babylonia. It was a college town. However, the rabbis acted in accordance with the opinion of Rava and would recite the blessing before they broke the bread. Ravina told me. Ravina said, my mother told me. I guess his father died when he was young. Your father acted in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Chia. As Rabbi Chia said, the blessing must conclude with the beginning of the breaking of the loaf of bread. And the rabbis acted in accordance with the opinion of Rava. The Gemara concludes, Allah is in accordance with the opinion of Rava, who said that one recites the blessing over the complete loaf, and only afterwards do we slice it and cut it. Okay. It was stated there was an Amoraic dispute, a dispute between.
What does Amoraic mean?
Very good question. Glad you asked. Amora is a sage from the times of the Talmud, which is a lower status as a Tana. A Tana is a sage from the time of the Mishnah, which preceded the Talmud. So the Amoraim are the next, I guess, set of generations. And it is their discussions that we read over here. And we're now going to learn about a dispute between the sages of the Talmud, the Amoraim, with regard to whether we recite the blessing over a whole loaf of bread or to recite it over a piece of bread. And it goes like this. If they brought pieces and whole loaves of bread before those partaking of a meal, what are you supposed to do? If you still have some pieces of, some slices of bread left from lunch, and now it's supper, and you have also a full loaf of bread, what do you do? Or if you are by a barbecue and they have sliced hot dog buns or should I say, they have burger buns and hot dog buns. The burger buns have been separated into two halves, and the hot dog buns have just a slice in the middle, but it's still a complete bun. I love that example. Isn't it great? What are you supposed to do if you buy a barbecue and you have hot dog buns and burger buns? The burger buns are cut in slices, right, down the middle. It's two halves, and the hot dog buns are still whole. Rav Huna said one may recite the blessing over the pieces, and with that blessing exempts the whole loaves as well. You can make a blessing on the burger bun, and then you don't have to make a new blessing on the hot dog bun. Rabbi Yochanan said the optimal manner in which to fulfill the mitzvah is to recite the blessing over the whole loaf. The best thing to do is to first eat a hot dog bun, or first make a blessing and take a bite of a hot dog bun. However, if the piece was of wheat bread and the whole loaf was of barley, if the burger buns were made out of wheat and the hot dog buns were made out of barley, everyone agrees that you would make a blessing over the piece of wheat bread. Although it is a piece of bread, it is nevertheless of superior quality, and in doing so, one exempts the whole loaf of barley bread. So better to have a slice of wheat bread than a full loaf of barley bread for your blessing. L'chaim. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba said the dispute between Rav Huna and Rabbi Yochanan is parallel to a Tanaitic dispute. So he says this is not only a dispute that we had among the sages of the Talmud, which are the Amoraim. We have the same dispute that we can find in the previous generations with the Tanoim when it comes to the laws of Teruma. You see, this guy must have been very smart because he was able to draw this parallel from a very different tractate. We learned even though onions from which teruma must be separated are divided equally between the two, one separates teruma from a whole small onion, but not from half of a large onion. So what happens if you have two onions? You have a half of a big one and a full small one, and you need to give a piece to the Kohen as his gift. So the Tanakama, which is the first author of this Mishnah, remains unnamed, says better give a piece from a small onion, which is a whole small onion, than to cut a piece from a half of a big onion. And Rabbi Yehuda says no, better give a gift to the Kohen from this half a big onion rather than the small onion. Is it not that they disagree over this point? One sage, Rabbi Yehuda, held that the more significant one takes precedence. Therefore, half of a large onion, which is superior quality, is preferable. And the first Tana held that the whole item takes precedence, and therefore it's better to give from the whole small onion than the half big onion. It's a great analogy. The Gemara rejects this comparison. No. Tell you why. If there is a Kohen there, and the Kohen can take the teruma from you, and he's there, and you're about to give it to him and hand it to him in his hand, then yes, you should give him the more significant one and give him a piece of a nice, big, juicy onion. When do they disagree? Their disagreement is in a case where there is no Kohen here. As we learned in the Mishnah, everywhere that there is a Kohen, one separates teruma from the best. But if there is no Kohen, then you separate teruma from that which will endure, so that when the Kohen gets it, he'll be able to derive benefit from it. So if you will take teruma from the big onion, which has already been sliced, it will shrivel out. But if you take teruma from the small onions, then because it's still whole, by the time the Kohen comes around, you'll still have an onion to give him. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no. One always separates teruma only from the best, even if it's not the longest lasting. You have to do yours and let God do his. You take a piece from the big juicy onion. And if by the time the Kohen gets here, it's shriveled up, that's his fault for coming late. That's not your problem. You have to give from the best for God. With regards to the dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Huna, whether you're supposed to better make a blessing over a slice of bread or whether you're better supposed to make a blessing over the whole loaf of bread, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said a God-fearing individual will fulfill both. What does it mean, a God-fearing individual, and what does it mean to fulfill both? Who is this God-fearing person? Is Mar, the son of Ravina. And the Gemara relates that Mar, the son of Ravina, would place a piece inside a whole loaf and break them together. Similarly, the Gemara relates that the Tana recited the Brisa before Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. He says this Tana was reciting before Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. He was quoting the Mishnah, and he quoted and he said, "What's the correct? Sorry, what is the correct thing to do is to place the piece inside the whole loaf and then breaks the bread and recites a blessing." And Rav Nachman asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "My name is Shalman." And Rav Nachman replied with a pun, "You are peace, and the teaching you recited is complete. As by means of this brisa, the disputing opinions are reconciled, and you establish peace among the students, that you can have your piece of bread, you can have your full bread, you can have your cake, and you can eat it too."
How, but in order to place a piece inside the hole, you have to break the hole in order to put the piece inside it.
That is a very good question, and I think it depends what kind of bread we have. Or, so if you have like a lafa kind of bread, then you can take a piece and fold it inside the full. And if you have a regular kind of bread, you can cut it halfway and you still have a full loaf. There's nothing missing from the loaf. You haven't broken off any pieces yet, and you can put the piece inside it. This resolution is reinforced in a unique case, as Rav Papa said. Everyone agrees that while fulfilling the mitzvah of eating matzah on Passover, one places the piece inside the hole and then breaks it. And that's what we do. We have 3 matzahs, and we have a full matzah on the top, a full matzah on the bottom, and a broken matzah in the middle. And the reason we do that is because it says bread of affliction, and the poor people eat their bread in pieces. Therefore, eating matzah on Passover, the broken matzah, is very significant. So when we make the blessing, we have the full matzahs and the broken matzahs all together. We stop over here, and I would like to encourage everybody to join us tomorrow. And I will let you know what are we learning about tomorrow. Peace begins at home. To achieve world peace and to bridge heaven and earth, we must begin with inner harmony between our own minds and our own hearts, and between our positive inclination and our negative inclination. As well, please mark your calendars for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah begins Monday night, September 22, and continues on the 23rd and the 24th. We will be having services all throughout Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The big ones are going to be Tuesday morning on Rosh Hashanah at 10 a.m., followed by a brunch and tashlich, as well as we're going to have Yom Kippur Kol Nidre and afternoon services the following day and break the fast. Keep your eyes peeled to your inbox for more information coming, God willing, this week. Looking forward to see you all tomorrow, as well as on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. God bless you all. May you have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bella Esther. Thank you.